Welfare and Science and Technology departments from 2007 to 10 and Chairman Board of Revenue of Rajasthan and Rajasthan Tax Board from 2017 to 18. From the year 2000 to 2007, he has served as Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Private Secretary to Honorable External Affairs Minister, Private Secretary to Honorable Finance Minister, and as an advisor to Executive Director, India at the International Monetary Fund, Washington, D.C. From 2010 to 2017, as Joint Secretary, he has served in the Ministries of Textiles, Culture, and Health and Family Welfare. Also, as Director General from National Archives of India. From the year 2018 to 21, he served as Additional Secretary to Government of India and Director General in National Centre for Good Governance. Sir was entrusted with important assignments as India's nominee on the International Monetary Fund, International Cotton Advisory Committee, the SARC Culture Centre, and the International Institute of Administrative Sciences, Brussels, during 2003 to 2022. Some of us who had the opportunity to work with Sir are familiar with his highly meticulous style of functioning. He is a versatile personality, a voracious reader, a powerful speaker, a keen sportsman, an institution builder par excellence, and someone who is on a constant pursuit for perfection. V. Srinivas was a junior national badminton champion in 1984, an All India Central Schools badminton champion in 1982-1983, and the All India Universities badminton champion in 1988. He represented Andhra Pradesh badminton team for 7 long years and captained Osmania University badminton team for 6 years. Sir, it is an absolute honor to have you with us this afternoon to enlighten us on the topic Next Generation Administrative Reforms in Amrit Kaal Period. Over to Srinivas sir for his address.
Thank you very much. Respected Director General, Indian Institute of Public Administration, Dr. S.N. Tripathi ji, Professor Ramesh Arora, the man who has inspired a generation of IAS officers in Rajasthan and the very essence of public administration and spirit of the government of Rajasthan. Dr. Samit Sharma, the Secretary of the IAS Association, who conceptualized this literary book discussion or experience sharing sessions. And all distinguished colleagues, I see in the audience a lot of colleagues with whom I have served with. I see Professor Yaram Razu, who taught us at the LBSNA when we were probationers. And I also see Professor Sheila Reddy. I see young district collectors from across the country who have joined in, and of course, colleagues from the DRPG. At the outset, let me congratulate the Rajasthan IAS Association for curating and convening this good governance webinar series, which I find was fascinating. And I think this is an exercise that should be continued with, where serving officers should be asked to share their experiences for dissemination within the service, as also dissemination with other states. And the Government of India also curates a similar national good governance webinar series in which modern India's super achievers or award winners in public administration are invited to share experiences. And I have found tremendous value in listening to these deeply committed individuals. I thought I should identify a title for the talk, and the focus should be on how best to represent a digitally empowered nation, a digitally empowered citizen, and a digitally transformed institution. And that, I thought, would be best symbolized in the title, India's Next Generation Administrative Reforms During the Amrit Kaal Period. If you see the history of administrative reforms, it has been a key feature of secretariat governance and also district governance for several decades. In fact, I have with me a report which dates back to 10th August 1947, report of the Secretariat Organization Committee that was chaired by G.S. Bajpai, who was an ICS officer serving in the Central Secretariat in 1947 along with 5 other officers. Over the last 75 years, the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances had set up over 50 commissions and committees to look at the various aspects of administrative reforms. These date back to A.D. Gorwala from 1951 till the current day's Second Administrative Reforms Commission of 2009. There were also a number of committees that were set up to look at examination reforms in terms of civil services examinations. The basic tenets and thrust of the various reports from Bajpai Committee or the Gorwala Committee till the second ARC remains the same. What is not inspected is simply not done. So timely inspections have been a major thrust area for the Indian Administrative Service. The second aspect is the challenges that the IAS officers face today are no different from the challenges that IAS officers faced in the 20th century. Commitment to the larger public good against all odds. That said, the governance challenges of the 21st century have become large scale, given the massive increase in population. And today's governance models, everybody brings data to the table. In fact, it is big data is brought to the table. And decision making has become highly nuanced. Accountability levels are very high, and it necessitates a governance skill that is increasingly specialized. My last posting in Government of Rajasthan was as Chairman Board of Revenue of Rajasthan, with additional charge as Chairman Rajasthan Tax Board in 2017 and 18. In the months of May and June 2018, I traveled about 8,000 kilometers by road in Rajasthan, inspecting revenue courts, interacting with more than 7,000 advocates of district bar associations, implementing the revenue campaign in every district at village level, conducting night halts in 32 districts of the state. I traveled from Barmer to Dholpur, from Sri Ganganagar to Baswada over the 60-day period, and I interacted with thousands of farmers, advocates, revenue officials, court officers. And what struck me in every village of the state was that Rajasthan's villages were technologically enabled. Everywhere I went, I found e-mitras, digital merchants, business correspondents who were visible in every village. Building to scale, building to last has become a reality as it was seen with the implementation of the Swachh Bharat mission, the proliferation of Jan Dhan accounts and Aadhaar, all of which enabled a huge transformation and empowerment. What I also observed was that Rajasthan's apex institutions of governance, like the Board of Revenue and the Rajasthan Tax Board, were at the nascent stages of digitization. Revenue court work needed radical reforms and digital transformation in institutions to enable comprehensive monitoring and quality of delivery. There was tremendous resistance to digital governance models. In fact, adoption was a huge challenge. Documentation and dissemination were at a low ebb, making institutional memory highly personalized. You had to know which clerk had worked on that particular subject to actually know what was the institutional memory relating to that subject. It was highly individual-led. The state secretariat administration was based on handling large volumes of physical files and was yet to fully adopt secretariat reforms for increasing efficiency in decision making. There were also structural rigidities in terms of government institutions, which resulted in significant pendency and delays that could be avoided if institutions showed willingness to operationalize digital platforms. The first effort that I made was to digitalize the Board of Revenue, and we operationalized the RCMS software, which brought in transparency in court work. Every court case, the advocate was informed on SMS that the cause list was available. The court judgments were made available at every panchayat headquarters using the e-Mitra platform, and reduction in procedural delays because cases would be listed in a manner with regard to argument stage, with regard to summons stage, and with regard to uh, admission stage. And technology became a huge force multiplier in disposal of revenue court work. And this I found in a few months' time. Rajkaj was operationalized. And Rajkaj was a huge driving force in terms of digitalization of APRs of officers, as also a whole lot of e-file system. And Rajkaj became a symbol of governance change in terms of digitalization of Rajasthan. Over the past 4 years, I've witnessed the digital transformation in the Central Secretariat. In fact, one of my first interactions with Dr. S.N. Tripathi was when we discussed the OSWAS software of Orissa government and how the Orissa Secretariat was brought on an e-office platform. Digital transformation of the Central Secretariat can be seen from the increase in number of e-files. Today, e-files have gone up from 4 lakhs to 32 lakhs. And disposal timelines are monitored, and an official cannot hide on file. In fact, if you see the major campaigns of Government of India, they are monitored on digital platforms which interact with each other. And social media analytics are monitored, and also citizen satisfaction is monitored. So, if I were to conduct a revenue campaign in 2022, I can say that it would be possible to reach every citizen of Rajasthan through a digital platform while conducting the same Prashasan Gaon Ki Aur campaign. And the outreach of the campaign can increase to several thousands of citizens within the span of a very short time. And further, every patwari, every girdawar, every block development officer, every gram panchayat could be monitored in an integrated manner on a portal. That is what next generation administrative reform is. And the objective is to bring citizens and government closer. So what can be done is the major thrust areas, special campaigns, because government keeps gathering pendency. How will special campaigns be conducted in 21st century? Adoption of secretariat reforms, benchmarking governance, because we keep doing a lot of activities and we need to benchmark ourselves on how we are doing. Redressal of public grievances, improving service delivery, recognizing meritocracy. Dr. Samit has done outstanding work in several sectors. How do you recognize his meritocracy? And replication of good governance practices through documentation and dissemination. These are the core features of next generation administrative reforms. It is important to institutionalize the transition from digitization to digitalization to digital transformation. Digitization was a stage wherein which only record of rights were being digitized and placed in public domain. Then we reached a stage of digitalization wherein some services were available. For example, Dr. Samit had done the scholarships were digitized and were provided to students. Digital transformation is when the whole institutional process is taken up on a digital platform with no physical files, but an e-government environment wherein which platforms interact with one another, necessitating a speed of delivery as also creating an agile, collaborative, and connected government. The policy maxim of the government is maximum governance, minimum government. And we had several successful e-governance models like e-office, CP Grams, Ayushman Bharat's PM Jan Arogya Yojana, Rail Madat, then PM's Jan Dhan Yojana, Umang, Ironet, One Nation, One Ration Card, Passport Seva Kendra. Then you have state governments' digital models like the Uttar Pradesh government's Digital Land, Chhattisgarh's Khanij Online, Haryana's Antyodaya Saral, which I thought was a fantastic platform for dealing with individual beneficiaries, as also their Parivar Pehchan Patra model. Then Go Swift of Orissa, Rajasthan's own iStart, which is there for startups as a major startup hub. It was a pioneering model. Maharera of Maharashtra. And you bring in transparency and openness into government. What can be a decisive influence was the adoption of e-office in creation of paperless central secretariats. And I will come to that aspect in the later parts of my talk. There have also been sweeping reforms in personal administration. Mission Karma Yogi, which IAPA has been playing a leadership role, lateral recruitment, accelerated promotion policies, regional conferences for replication, and recognizing excellence through awards like the PM's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration. All of them represent a paradigm shift of India's governance models. And the best manifestation of the maximum governance, minimum government policy is a digitally empowered citizen and a digitally transformed nation. So let me come to a quote from the Honorable Prime Minister on how he describes next generation administrative reforms. And the Honorable Prime Minister says, in the Amrit period of independence, we are marching ahead rapidly to create a transparent system, efficient process, and smooth governance to make development all-round and all-inclusive. Government is committed to strengthening good governance, that is pro-people and proactive governance, and it will be guided by the citizen-first approach, and we remain untiring in our efforts to further deepen the outreach of service delivery mechanisms and make them more effective. Let me mention 3 campaigns that I have been recently part of and how digital platforms can transform the scale at which governance models can be executed. If you want a digital model which can be pan-India, covering every district, every village, that is possible. And that kind of a model was the Special Campaign 2.0, which was executed from October 2nd to October 31st. And the objective of this was to institutionalize Swachhata and to minimize pendency in government. इस कैंपेन का फोकस था डिजिटाइजेशन, efficient management of office spaces, enhancement of office spaces, and environmental friendly practices. It was conducted in more than 100,000 office spaces across the length and breadth of India. And 58 lakh files were reviewed, 29 lakh files were weeded. Scrap disposal alone earned 365 crores. You can imagine the quantum of scrap, electronic scrap, office scrap that is there in government offices, which can result in this kind of an earning. And the participation for the highest levels of government, as also a number of citizen-centric activities were taken up. For example, pensioners were asked to take up a campaign for face authentication app. Mechanized cleaning was introduced in all railway stations. Instead of using a broom where a lot of dust is raked up, mechanized cleaning brought in a more sophisticated cleaning process. Use of Aadhaar for mobile banking through post offices was another innovative feature. Reducing passenger wait times in airports was adopted, and I also found robots using in the Baba Atomic Research Center for cleaning of sewers, which appeared to be a very advanced stage of innovation. So we had scrap yards, dump yards, which were converted into cafeterias, into yoga centers, into wellness centers, and the entire management of the campaign could be done on a daily basis on a digital platform. So we had cafeterias like the Parcel Cafe of Kolkata GPO, the Plastic Rakshasa in the Bangalore railway station, a paddle ship converted into a restaurant in Bhopal, and also from steel scrap, a garden was developed in the Bokaro steel plant. Then we also had office spaces like Riju, which developed yoga centers. This campaign has featured in the Prime Minister's tweets as also in his Man Ki Baat a number of times, and it brought several innovations into governance. I think one of the first areas we should look at is having a special campaign that should look at reducing pendency in government. The Prime Minister said that this is the new thinking in the country, which is being led by all countrymen working together. When we monitored the status of the Special Campaign 2.0 on a social media analytics platform, we found that it had reached 4.1 billion impressions. 410 crore impressions were available on the Twitter handle. And in addition to earning revenue, the campaign was followed actively not only in India, but also in several countries abroad on the status of implementation. That is the magnitude of change that a successful e-governance platform can bring. And I was very impressed with the Jan Sampark portal of Rajasthan. It brings in a lot of clarity and transparency in terms of dealing with public grievances and improving service delivery. The second major campaign that I want to discuss here is increasing efficiency in the Central Secretariat. We spend a number of years in the Secretariat. We work as deputy secretaries, we work as special secretaries in the state, principal secretaries, additional chief secretaries, and of course, we have the highest position of chief secretary in the central government as deputy secretaries, directors, joint secretaries, additional secretaries, special secretaries, and then as secretaries. In the long careers in Secretariat, how do we bring in this huge hierarchy of officers which are process driven, how do we increase efficiency? The campaign to increase efficiency is to review channels of submission and pursue a quest for flatter organizations. The second is to ensure that delegation of financial and administrative powers is adequate. The third is to digitalize the Central Secretariat. In fact, that has made a quantum difference because officers cannot hide on file in an e-office environment. And the last is adopt a desk officer system. When I was reading the reorganization of the Central Secretariat report of 1947, I found that Mr. G.S. Bajpai was also confronted with the same challenges in terms of delayering, in terms of delegation, in terms of identifying office superintendents who can work as desk officers, and ensuring a faster delivery of services and decision making. Now, this is possible in today's environment in an e-office platform. It can easily transform the scale of modalities. Even if you have 10,000 undersecretaries and 5,000 odd deputy secretaries, you can monitor the work of each one of them, how many files they are handling, how many are writing submission notes, how many are writing cabinet notes, how many are writing committee of secretaries notes, can be easily monitored. In fact, the Rajkaj software is a very strong portal that enables this kind of monitoring. The third initiative that I wish to speak about is the Good Governance Week. The Good Governance Week is a very interesting and fascinating initiative. And the Sushasan Saptah was implemented at village level across the length and breadth of the country. And it brought forth the sheer power of if 35 grievance redressal platforms work in unison. For example, you have the E-Janaspandana of Karnataka, the East, the Spandana of Andhra Pradesh, Janahita of Telangana, the Chief Minister's window of Kerala, Aple Sarkar of Maharashtra, the CM's window helpline of Gujarat, Awaze Awam or the JK Igrams of Jammu Kashmir, the Chief Minister's window of Haryana. When each of them and the Mo Sarkar of Orissa, when the digital portals start working in unison, the multiplier effect of technology as a force multiplier to deliver good governance can be seen. And when we launched the Sushasan Saptah, in which all states were asked to participate and an integration of portals was taken up, we found within 5 days' time 289 lakh applications could be disposed in just 5 working days. That is the power that technology gives, and we could monitor the work that was done at every district in India and within the district where the campaigns were held. Not only could it be monitored in terms of numbers, but it could be monitored in terms of photographs, before after pictures, in terms of action taken reports, in terms of documentation through video clips and best practices. So today, the campaigns that can be administered on a scale and size which are totally unprecedented. We could never have thought that we can reach every citizen of the country through an online platform. But the scale and rapidity with which our e-governance models are expanding necessitate benchmarking. And we need to benchmark governance. And in the last 4 years, I have seen India's governance models being benchmarked against the world's governance models. And also, we tried to benchmark the states' governance models and the district governance models. The Good Governance Index tried to assess over 10 sectors and 58 indicators the status of good governance and the direction of governance over the last 2 years. In fact, the first Good Governance Index was brought out in 2019, and the second edition was brought out in 2021. And it showed states were progressing in a positive direction with regard to good governance models. Rajasthan performed very creditably in terms of citizen-centric governance, in environment, in judiciary and public safety. And there were several other states wherein which good governance practices showed highly positive indicators. The successful experience of creating a national good governance index enabled us and gave us the confidence to create district good governance indices. In fact, the IAPA is documenting the District Good Governance Index of 75 districts of Uttar Pradesh. We had documented the Good Governance Index at district level for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and for the state of Arunachal Pradesh and Gujarat. So what we found was that the next level of governance would be to benchmark governance at district level. And that would be an endeavor which can be operationalized on a digital platform also. The formulation of indices necessitated strengthening of the statistics and economics organizations. And we had the directorates of economics and statistics being strengthened across several states. The other big assessment that was undertaken was the e-services delivery assessment. Government provides over 100 e-services. If you see the Umang platform, there are more than 1,000 e-services that are available online. They need to be benchmarked. And for example, be it the NDM during the COVID, when we had the CoWIN portal, the Arogya Setu app, and also a lot of war rooms could be created within states. The Karnataka state war room, Uttar Pradesh had a war room, and also education could be imparted online. Let me come to the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration, because we need to recognize meritocracy. Officers perform with high levels of commitment, putting service above self to ensure and improve service delivery, and the immense commitment that is shown is recognized at national level through the PM's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration. In fact, I was very, very excited to watch the PM Awards for Excellence in Public Administration that were conferred on 47 officers on April 21, 2022. Some of them were the Chanpatia Navapravartan Startup Zone of West Champaran district, in which a lot of migrants had returned to Bihar from other states, and the district collector, Mr. Kundan Kumar, commenced a startup for apparel manufacturing in the Navpravartan startup zone, and more than 3,000 such migrants were re-employed and could find employment avenues in West Champaran district. The other project that interested me greatly was the project Sampurna of Bongaigaon district, in which malnutrition in children was addressed by creating a budding mothers program, so that all the pregnant mothers could exchange notes through WhatsApp groups with regard to a decentralized technology model. Samagra Siksha had witnessed a data-driven real-time monitoring model, and also we've had success with the Seva Sindhu app. Now, I was fascinated with the Seva Sindhu app. In fact, I invited Mr. Rajiv Chawla, the 1986 batch officer who had curated, then created and envisaged this app, to join this event, because the Seva Sindhu app brought together a whole number of services, and it also represented an effort to take governance to the doorstep. So, delivery of services at the doorstep was the next innovation in terms of the Seva Sindhu app that was brought about. Similarly, we have a number of national e-governance awards which confer the e-governance best practices. Let me come to the digital transformation in governance. As I said, adoption of e-office represents a massive game changer with regard to how secretariats work. Every officer is online, and officers cannot hide on file. If a file is withheld, delays can be spotted, decision-making delays can be spotted, and the transformation of the central secretariat was something that is possible with e-office. It has had a number of success stories. For example, the uninterrupted functioning of the central secretariat during the pandemic was possible because of the adoption of e-office. People could work from home because virtual private networks were given, laptops were given to undersecretaries, and there was no disruption in terms of government functioning. And what we found was the number of e-files that were created increased exponentially by something like 25,000 e-files every fortnight. In fact, it even went up to 37,000 files a fortnight in one of the fortnights during the pandemic. So increasingly, the Central Secretariat shifted to an e-governance and an e-office model. Another success story that I wish to mention is that there were two secretariats that were working in Jammu and Kashmir. One was the secretariat in Jammu, and the other was the secretariat in Srinagar. And the movement of staff and files from one secretariat to the other is called the Darbar movement, and it entailed physical transfer of more than 280 truckloads of files. The adoption of e-office enabled operationalization of both secretariats simultaneously, and the carriage of physical files could be eliminated once legacy records were created. I've also seen that in terms of external references, like references to the Integrated Finance Division or references to within large institutional setups like DRDO, where files are heavy and project files need transfer, even there, e-office has proved highly beneficial. The last aspect of good governance that I wish to touch is CP grams. I was amazed to see the number of citizens who approached subdivisional officers, district collectors, divisional commissioners, revenue appellate authorities, Board of Revenue, as also in ministerial visits with regard to public grievances. On an average, a district collector is handling about 3 lakh public grievances per annum across the country. There may be some districts which handle higher than that. A state secretariat is handling about 20 lakh PG cases an annum. Of course, larger states like UP could be handling slightly more than that, about 30, 35 lakh cases per annum. And the central secretariat is handling about 30 lakh public grievance cases per annum. In all, we are handling collectively more than 500 lakh cases across India, 735 districts. It's a huge volume of citizens who are approaching us, and it necessitates a portal that operationalizes it to ensure every citizen's grievance is heard and redressed. And it requires skill building of the grievance officers. It also requires mapping of grievance officers on the portal, and it requires integration of portals across the country so that grievances can move seamlessly from the state government to the central government if they are filed on the state portal, and from the central government to the state government if they are filed on the central government's portal. What we found was, after mapping of about 86,000 grievance redressal officers on the CP Grams platform and the using of Sevottam for capacity building of grievance officers, the grievance redressal time could be brought down significantly. In fact, what we see across departments are a grievance disposal time of 10 to 11 days. The COVID grievance redressal time was even faster, 1.45 days. Dependency in the central secretariat and the state secretariats could be brought down significantly. What I found was that we were carrying more than 10 lakh PG cases as pending cases. Once the two-way integration was completed, the average pendency has come down across the country to less than 1 lakh cases. In the central secretariat alone, it has come down to 75,000 cases. That is what a technology platform, which is enabled with artificial intelligence, machine learning, office automation practices, can bring to the system. An agile government, a digitally empowered government, and a digitally transformed institution. How do we disseminate best practices? And I'd like to compliment Dr. Samit for initiating this series. I find it a fascinating series, and I would urge him to keep inviting continuously officers who understand state government as also national government to this platform. In fact, Dr. Tripathi is a participant in many of our regional conferences and has supported this endeavor to document and disseminate best practices of the Government of India. We hold 3 regional conferences in which award winners come and speak. And in the current year, the regional conferences were held at Srinagar, Itanagar, and Bangalore. Last year, they were held at Srinagar, Lucknow, and Bhubaneswar. In each of these conferences, we invite more than 500 officers to come and share experiences. And of course, at the national conferences, we invite more than 2,000 officers to participate. So dissemination of good practices is a continuous exercise. And in addition to this, we felt the need to curate a national good governance webinar once a month in which about 1,000 officers participate to exchange their views. So this is a very welcome initiative by the Rajasthan IAS Association. And my compliments to you, Dr. Samit, for taking this forward. The last part of my talk I would dedicate to Vision India at 2047. How do we want Vision India at 2047? Vision India 2047 is something that would be driven by young officers, officers who are currently serving in the field as district collectors. They would be in policy making positions by 2047. How do we envisage the capacity building of these officers in an age which is getting more and more specialized, wherein which digital governance models are coming into play? Understanding of big data is necessary to ensure nuanced decision making. So, one of the features that we did was we identified the need for collaboration between academics, startups, and civil servants. We reached out to the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras Research Park, where more than 2,000 startups are operational, and invited 40 startups which are at seed stage, 40 advanced startups, and 40 young academics who work as assistant professors, associate professors, or additional professors, and 40 young officers who are working in the field, who are outstanding district collectors, or who are serving as special secretaries with about 10 to 15 years of experience, and created 10 groups wherein which on 10 subjects of importance for 2047, like energy and net zero, climate change, health, education, and major social sector challenges, water, these could be identified and taken forward. In fact, the Indian Institute of Public Administration, as our knowledge partner, has formulated a very comprehensive vision India for 2047 as to how e-governance models can come into play, because the coming age is all a digital age. It is also an age wherein which the quest for a Naitik Bharat will continue to be very, very important. So let me conclude by saying that the future belongs to young innovators, technology experts, and capable of building digital institutions by use of blockchain, designing projects for innovation at district level, and also ensuring an inclusive internet system with thousands of citizen-centric devices. Once again, let me reiterate that the best manifestation of the policy of maximum governance, minimum government, is to bring citizens and government closer. So this will entail considerable government process reengineering, universalizing access to e-services, and excellence in digital initiatives at district level. So we can be sure that in any future governance model, India will play a critical part. And of course, the states will have a very important role in bringing considerable momentum into this entire initiative. So thank you very much, Dr. Samit, for inviting me today. And I'm extremely grateful to you and the Rajasthan IAS Association for curating this webinar to take and exchange some of the views and experiences that serving officers have on this forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really an insightful session. In fact, after listening to your session, I think and I am hopeful that in everybody who have listened to your session will be hopeful about the future of the country. Government is doing so much. The bureaucracy is striving hard and hard for the betterment of this country. This is very well explained by you in your session, and I'm sure even the students who have joined us in this session, they will be glad to know that we are doing so much for the betterment of the country, and India will be sooner a better place to live for everybody. Thank you so much for sparing so much of time and also working so hard to gather so much knowledge in one session, sir. Thank you so much. I hope your session must have uh, inculcated some of the queries among all the participants, so we will open the house for the discussion. Without wasting any time, we will go for the question answer round. I think Dr. Samit Sharma sir want to ask a question. Sir, please go ahead.
Sir, Namaskar. Sir, first of all, thank you very much for accepting our request, sir. We are greatly indebted to you. The association is greatly indebted to you for delivering such an insightful talk, sir. And you have taken the professionalism to the highest level in civil service, sir. We all are so inspired by you. Uh, so my first question is, you talked of digitalization, and digital transformation. So how this will help in uh, developing or creating new India, and what process changes will be involved, sir? Thanks.
The biggest challenge I found to bringing a digitalization stage or a digital transformation stage is the adoption, the willingness of government to adopt change. You find tremendous institutional resistance to change, and it requires a lot of consensus building. I'm sure when you digitalize uh, the scholarships for in the social justice department, you would have experienced it. When I tried to digitalize the Board of Revenue, and Vijay Divakar is, I can see in the audience, there was tremendous resistance. The registrar did not want it, the members did not want it, the advocates did not want it. To actually bring this kind of a consensus took a huge amount of effort. And then it required, when we tried to take it to the district level, once again we found the districts did not want it, and they didn't want to be monitored in terms of the number of sittings a district collector sat or the number of sittings an SDO had in terms of court work. So the first is institutional willingness to adopt change. I think that is the first aspect of digital transformation. The second one, of course, is ensuring accessibility between the internet rich and the internet poor. So the common service centers go a long way in terms of building this kind of gap between internet rich and internet poor. And the last is process reengineering. When we try to construct a digital institution, we need considerable new skills. The skills of existing officials need to be upscaled. For example, if you're trying to digitalize a hospital system, and you will need to put the doctor's diaries online in case you want to give an online registration system for patients. And you will have to have a nursing coordinator who will manage that kind of a whole setup in which a doctor can see 100 patients in an OPD per day. The same way, if you try to digitalize a court system, you can digitalize, say, for example, a listing of about 80 court cases per hearing for an SDO. Of these, 20 will be for arguments, 20 will be for admissions, 20 cases will be for written statements, 20 cases for evidence. It must be ensured that in a digital model, the presiding officer or the officer who is supervising that institution is fully on board. In fact, I found it in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which was the first time I tried to create a digital institution. The Board of Revenue was my second effort at creating a fully digital institution. And here in DRPG, we tried to scale up on e-office and CP grams. And in each of these changes, the institutional adoption by individuals has to be rapid for the system to take up. I think that is my experience. Now we have Dr. Tripathi, who has implemented it in the Orissa Secretariat, and he was also in our committee of secretaries. So I think his experience has also been the same, that the reluctance of individual officials to adopt change is a big challenge. It's a big challenge, and consensus building is a huge effort that is always needed.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, even I want to ask you one question. What are the key features of the Vision India 2047 for the governance? And how do we see that what are the different roles for future policy makers that are different from the policy makers of 2022, sir?
As I said, the Vision India 2047 will still have several commonalities in terms of time-tested administrative systems adherence to rule of law as also established norms, and there will be a structure of governance that will be the same. However, the change that will come is in terms of the scale of digitalization and digitally transformed institutions that come in. And that is where governance needs to adapt itself to new e-governance models. And what I find is in several areas, startups have come to play a very important part. In fact, I was interacting with Zoho, which is a startup on office automation. And Zoho brings in tremendous number of analytics in terms of how an e-office software could work. For example, the analytics of how many days is a file with a particular official, analytics in terms of how many officials have written submission notes and how many are merely signing on file, or how many files have moved beyond the delegated levels. If a file is to be disposed by an office superintendent, however, that file has moved beyond office superintendent, has reached the secretary level, the analytical data can immediately capture it. So, as I said, the 2047 digital systems would be based on greater use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain coming in a great way into government, and office automation footprint being available. In fact, the digital land initiative of the government of UP represents 1 crore hits per day on a blockchain platform with regard to just taking copies of land records. 1 crore hits per day. So when we designed the www.ors.gov.in, I did not realize the sheer potential and usage with regard to the number of hospital appointments that would be taken online. And when I was conducting the e-services delivery assessment, I found that the e-hospital software was one of the most widely used softwares in terms of a digital footprint. The same way with e-office, 400,000 files was what the Central Secretariat had when we started in 2018. Today, we're looking at 32 lakh e-files. So the scale and size of governance has changed. Also, the understanding in terms of big data handling is very significant. In a 2047 model of governance, everybody will bring big data to the table. Of course, in God, we will continue to trust, but everybody brings data to the table, and decision making will be extremely nuanced, and also the accountability levels would be far higher.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, as you have mentioned in your session that documentation is very important for the governance. So I would like to ask another question related to this only, that what are the key elements of dissemination and documentation of innovations in governance and benchmarking of governance, sir?
This is a very good question. In fact, the documentation of records and administrative history is a vital aspect of our governance. And as I said, I was looking at some of the documents of 1908. In fact, the Indian Institute of Public Administration has documented the history of the Central Secretariat from 1834. 1834, when the Central Secretariat was set up in Delhi, moved from Kolkata to Delhi. The first examination that was conducted for entry into the Indian Civil Service in 1855. The creation of new ministries and departments on the eve of independence. And how did the restructuring of the Secretariat go on? Documentation of history, administrative history is a vital aspect. I think the HCM Reaper should play a very key role in terms of documenting administrative history, in terms of also the Department of Administrative Reforms. Rajasthan has a very diverse history. In fact, one of the complex administrative origins of Rajasthan emanates from the princely states coming together. You have the Mewar Tenancy Act, you have the Marwar Tenancy Act, you have the Kota Tenancy Act, the Bundi Tenancy Act, Jaipur Tenancy Act, and then all these acts came together and converged into the Rajasthan Tenancy Act, and interpretation of some of the cases I used to hear as Chairman Board of Revenue dated back to the Mewar Tenancy Act. It became really complicated. And I recall Mahesh I can see in the bedroom, and he was Collector Bundi. And I recall in one of the visits, he showed me the excerpts of the Bundi command system and how the cases emanated from Bundi were quite different from the cases that came from Bikaner. So the documentation of administrative history is a vital clog. And then dissemination of success stories. In fact, I was very impressed by the work done by Dr. Jitendra Soni in silicosis care in Nagaur district. I thought it was a phenomenal experience. And also the work done by Bhagwati Kalal in terms of implementing the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana in Banswada and implementing the I think the redressal of public grievances on the Jan Sampark portal in Sirohi. Now, these success stories need to be documented as to how these could happen. In fact, a massive, fascinating success story is the construction of the Indira Gandhi Nehar Pariyojana by the civil engineers of Jodhpur Engineering College working in IGNP, working in huge cutting reaches and building the canal through almost 1,500 kilometers to build a 21 lakh hectare command system. So I think the documentation of administrative history is important. Further, dissemination of success stories. This is a good way. This webinar is one of the best starts. I think you should call more officers to exchange views every month so that, and participation will increase, so that would be the right way to disseminate administrative history, would be through oral accounts, through documented accounts, and experience sharing.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really informative. We will surely organize such more series. I have got a message from Professor Ramesh Arora. He wants to ask a question. Sir, please go ahead.
See, thank you very much. It's a wonderful presentation made by you. But the only thing that worries me is that the innovations being introduced in Government of India are enormous, but at the state level, perhaps the old traditional system of office procedure still continues. I used to call it a badminton bureaucracy, where officers throw files at each other like shuttlecocks, and it continues even now. You want to move from badminton bureaucracy to electronic bureaucracy, but what is happening is that the state levels, sufficient training is not being imparted. There are no resource persons. And Government of India's training division also has not done enough to percolate all these various new ideas to a state level. So what is happening is that central government will become almost an island of excellence, but we want really a continent of excellence. How do you think that greater efforts by state governments can really materialize with the help of the central government, of course? Otherwise, things will remain rather based on personality-oriented innovations. Mr. Srinivas.
I did 2 stints in the state secretariat, one as a young deputy secretary handling expenditure in finance department and taxation. And then I served 3 years handling finance and planning and family welfare and NRHM, and then a stint as science and technology. What you said is quite correct with regard to multiple references being made to the referral departments, particularly to finance, planning, even in many cases to DOP, and clarifications being sought when extant procedures are quite clear. This kind, particularly in a physical file system, this kind of references become increasingly possible because decision making can be delegated upwards and both vertically as also horizontally. In an e-file system where levels of decision making are quite clear and delegation and channels of submission are clear, it is much faster to identify officials who are delegating both vertically upwards as also horizontally across departments. In fact, it would be imperative, for example, if Rajkaj could be developed into a system wherein which the e-office model can capture areas of files where vertical as also horizontal references are being made, and a delayering approach which empowers office superintendents a great deal. For example, assistant secretaries and office superintendents I found were sending almost every file at least to the secretary level in the state. Hardly anything was being decided at assistant secretary level. Even routine day-to-day dark disposal, there was a reluctance. There is a need for delayering. There is also a need for revisiting delegation of financial authority and adoption of a desk officer system. And above all, the central registration unit should be digitized. The receipts that come in state government should be online entirely, and the monitoring and disposal of receipts, for example, references that are made to ministers, references that are made with regard to cabinet notes, references that are made on interstate basis. These should be monitored through digital portals. Public grievances and records management practices should also be monitored. I found that in a physical file system, often the referral departments are at the receiving end because they have no control in terms of the number of files they actually handle. And you can receive 200 files in a day in the state secretariat across departments. And the only way it can be curbed is if an e-office system with sufficient safeguards and delayering is introduced. The level of disposal should be brought down to 3 or 4 levels maximum, and that has been a pursuit in Government of India. So every time it crosses a 4th level, there is a red light that goes on that this file has crossed the number of levels that it should have gone through. So it requires a certain kind of secretariat reorganization is definitely required.
Only one point as an addendum. See, the officer-oriented system, which is based on the British system, Whitehall system, was applied and introduced in Rajasthan in 1961. And between 1961 and 1963, there were 5 departments having officer-oriented system. Education, cooperative, personnel, that is appointments, cooperative and financial expenditure. But within 3 to 4 years, this was abandoned because transfer of officers, the officers did not have much of knowledge about the cases, pending cases. There was a habit of only depending on the section officer and the deputy secretaries. So no secretary took really pains to understand as to what was happening. Likewise, what happened was that there were so many transfers, and these transfers always take away the experience of an officer in a particular department. So there has to be a placement and transfer policy if you really want to have an officer-oriented system. Well, that's not happening. But you being at the head of this reforms innovation enterprise at the Government of India should take interest in what could be done in all the states. Because in Rajasthan, I don't find any movement, any initiative presently for bringing about all the reforms which the Government of India can take pride of. I don't know. There is a big gap. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are so many questions asked in the chat box also. First, I will ask Dr. P.C. Jain, sir. Sir, you kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, madam. Good afternoon. And I thank Professor Ramesh Arora sir to giving me opportunity to be here. And sir, it was an excellent talk by you. I have just 2 curiosity. I would like your kind attention. No, one thing you said that it's a digital by the acceptance from our stakeholders. But what about the its acceptance among the illiterate people? So for that illiterate to reach these services to because a lot of people are illiterate, how do you take care of those limitations? Second point, also you mentioned about the benchmarking against international. So it's nicely done. But on some scale, can we say what stage our advanced countries have reached and what stage we are on some maybe scale of 10 or 100? So what percentage we have achieved and how? Thank you very much.
Very interesting. And I think technology adoption by rural societies is what has been seen. आज की तारीख में you go to any village and e-mitras are there, Paytm is being used, Aadhaar numbers are there, Jandhan accounts are there, Narega payments are online, and acceptance of technology by rural societies has been a great success of this entire e-governance model. And I'm sure futuristic e-governance models will also be adopted by rural societies very largely. The gap between internet rich and internet poor is being bridged by development of common service centers. Also, the internet speed in many locations will be enhanced if internet cables are being laid, high-speed digital highways are being created. So a futuristic governance model is quite advanced and will be well accepted in all rural villages. In fact, in 2018, when I traveled the length and breadth of Rajasthan, I was quite struck by how much of technology adoption India's villages had. I recall visiting Dhundada, which I had visited as a district collector in 1999, in 2018, 20 years later. And I found that in terms of e-mitras or e-correspondents, I found the preponderance of the village was willing to accept change. Even when revenue cases were placed online on the e-mitra platform, everybody was willing to accept it. In fact, this was done in a village in Nagaur district. And even there, I found people had access to internet. In terms of how do you see India's digital governance model or platforms? I find them that the entire world is going digital, from Estonia to Singapore, from United States to Australia. Everybody is going digital. So India should continue to adopt digital governance models to take its governance to the next level.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I am able to see the comment of Shri Ye Ram Raju, sir. Sir, you can ask the question directly. Ye Ram Raju, sir.
Can I ask one question, Deji?
Sure, sir. Indrajit Singh Sodhi, sir, please.
Yeah, very good afternoon. Nice. So when we talk about administrative reform, first administrative reform commission, second administrative reform commission, even we come to know Lord Nolan, who has given report committee on standard in public life in 1994 in Britain. But still, I believe there is not much effort in regarding ethics. During training, civil servants are taught about ethics. Even some initiative was taken for ethics in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. But in practical terms, if we talk about what is your view regarding whether there could be some more reform, I believe there is more needed reform, whether some initiatives are being taken up and how technology could play for bringing ethical norms and values.
Ethics are very foundational to the Indian administrative service. In fact, personally, in every lecture of mine, I have abided by the norm that I'm ethical, I'm accountable, I'm the IAS. So that has been a personal belief with me. And I recall the words that my late father said when I joined service, that never fudge a logbook, never fudge a TA bill. And that is the first step towards being an honest officer. I've had the opportunity to interact with several legendary figures, and the quest for a Naitik Bharat has been an area that many of them have been propagating. The former cabinet secretary, Mr. Prabhat Kumar, has written a book titled Ethical India and the quest for a Naitik Bharat. in which he has called the civil service to reinvent itself and pursue a quest for a Naitik Bharat. And he said ethics are very fragile. It can be lost. In fact, reputations can be lost with small errors of judgment. And urged great caution on behalf of civil servants to ensure that the quest for Naitik Bharat can only be fulfilled if top leadership of government adopts values that are commensurate with these models and virtues that the Constitution has laid down.
Thank you. Thank you,
Can I
sir.
raise now?
Thank you so much, sir. I think Yeram Raju sir is there. Sir, please.
Yeah. Let me first thank Mr. Srinivas for giving me the link to listen to this excellent seminar. A very excellent chronicling has been done by you from digitization to digital transformation. What I notice still is a mere acknowledgement with certain timeline for final resolution is yet to be seen even from the senior secretaries to government at the central government level and also at the state government level, number one. Number two, the administrative reforms to be implemented in a really very effective manner is also dependent on the judicial reforms and the police reforms that we can bring, because particularly in the context of the digitization and the cyber risks growing phenomenally, um, the insecurity to the communications has also gone up very seriously. So, what steps do you think, Mr. Srinivas, that we should be really taking from the micro level to the macro level, from the rural to the urban to the metro, and from the uneducated to the educated, from the uneducated handling the smartphones to the highly educated handling the laptops and tablets? How do you really look at this and where do we place ourselves in terms of this transformation?
The journey has been quite exciting. The journey is very futuristic, and the journey lies in the youth. And Dr. Yaramrazu was our faculty at the LBS NAA when he taught us econometric models. And the journey is also based upon how the scale with which we can build digital platforms is possible. As he has rightly pointed out, top-level leadership is very important in terms of bringing in institutional transformation. Unless the head of the department or the secretary to the government in the state or in the autonomous, attached or subordinate office in Government of India is deeply committed to change, it will not happen. And that requires considerable amount of process re-engineering. But as I said, the futuristic journey appears to be quite positive, and I'm very hopeful that India in 2047 would be quite a front runner in terms of global governance models.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Mahesh Sharma. Sir, right now I'm traveling in Hadoti region for some procurement issues, and I still remember the days 27 years back when I was ADM Pali and your thrust for the clean and transparent administration. During that period also when I was ADM with you. Sir, we are highly delighted and of course deeply benefited by the deliberations today. And my question is that the contribution so far has been at individual level, it has been very, very good. But still, we feel some sort of lacks in as far as the some strong, effective driving force at the central level or state level is still needed.
I entirely agree with you. I entirely agree with Mahesh ji that the digital transformation journey emanates from an institution's willingness to adopt. If the Board of Revenue adopted that change, it took more than 50 rounds of meetings to convince all stakeholders to adopt change. And if the districts adopted the RCMS platform, it was because there was adequate supervisory oversight to ensure that the RCMS platform was operationalized. The Rajkaj, if it is to be highly successful, has to be supervised and monitored as a successful digital platform. The problem with digital platforms is that if they are not supervised, they can fall into disarray and disuse. So, the caution that needs to be exercised is if we create a digital platform, we should exercise supervisory oversight. In if what A.D. Gorwala wrote in 1951, what is not inspected is simply not done, is still continuing to be relevant 75 years later.
Thank you so much, sir. So there are
Just to reinforce your idea, I must tell you, there is one Mr. Prakash Tandon who was chairman of Punjab National Bank and also State Trading Corporation of India on different days. He came to OTS to deliver a lecture. I invited him. He said India does not need any administrative reform except one, monitoring. And all senior officers should monitor effectively their juniors, and that is enough. What that is, as you rightly said, A.D. Gorwala, what is not inspected is not done. I think monitoring is rather weak. Very good officers you find everywhere, but very few who really take interest in the work that their juniors were doing or are doing, and modifying their approach to administration, guiding them, inspiring them, motivating them, and that is not being done. Good officers and good leadership, they should go together.
I entirely agree. In fact, one of the paras that I can read, the institution of senior officers meetings in Government of India, how did it come about was an aspect that I was probing. And when I read Bajpayi's report, Mr. Bajpai writes on August 10th, 1947, that it is necessary for the secretary of a department to keep in touch with the work of the department as a whole and to coordinate it. This should be done by the secretary by holding daily or weekly or bi-weekly meetings of all officers in charge of sections. This method has worked successfully in a number of departments in United Kingdom during the war. So that was how the concept of having weekly senior officers meetings emanated in Government of India. So every week on the Mondays, SOMs are held in the Central Secretariat, and these lead to a lot of clarity in terms of monitoring.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, actually there are so many queries, but we are short of time. So I think we should invite sir again for our wonderful session so that we can take different queries. Actually, this is the success of today's session, that after listening to you, there are so many queries in the minds of different people of different sections, bureaucrats, academicians, students, and here lies the success of the session. So I must congratulate you, sir. Before we come to this discussion again, I would like to invite Shri S.N. Tripathi, sir, DG IIPA, for his remarks. He is a wonderful civil servant who has been secretary to the Government of India, and under his able success, IIPA is reaching up to strength and is building so much in the field of building a link between the practical and academic fraternity. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me compliment Srinivasji, who has been always a mesmerizing speaker in addition to being a very good friend of mine. And compliment the IAS Association Rajasthan as well as IIP Rajasthan and all of you for making it a point to listen to him. A lot of things are happening in GOI as well as state government, which he documented. And many more things might be happening which may not have come to notice also. Because many more states are now involved, because good governance is not a matter of choice. governance means good governance. You can't say that I am bureaucrat, but I will be unethic. I mean, it is a contradiction in terms that I will make money because I am a government servant. I have to behave in a different fashion, and therefore we need to highlight all these things. There is a theoretical framework behind all these things. As Professor Arora and many of us have seen it, the people who created government and bureaucracy. Now we are trying to bridge the gap between people and the bureaucracy on the one hand, and people and people's representative on the other hand. And the tool that we have is training and capacity building of bureaucrat, maybe at times teaching them ethical values. But the other tool which is very important, which has been highlighted by Mr. Srinivas, is the digital tool that the governments have been using, be it e-office, be it e-dispatch, be it many more things. But I agree with one speaker that he put the question, are we taking these initiatives at individual level or at institution level? Because citizens will get benefit when institutions reform. Like railway ticketing has improved, it has improved the image of railways. If e-office has become successful in GOI, it has improved the image of GOI. Rajkaj and many other such things have to be taken with the same passion, so that it will have a state-wide or at least sector-wide implication. And to that extent, the reforms that has been taken now. But one more thing I would like to highlight here is, as we did in Orissa was mentioned by Mr. Rimasji. I was Secretary IT at that point in time, Secretary RD at that point in time. What we did say that from lineman to chairman, every letter from field to secretariat and secretariat to field, from any office to any office, will be put on the internet first. Because most of the time we face this problem, आपका चिट्ठी तो मिला नहीं, चिट्ठी मिल गया, enclosure मिला नहीं, enclosure मिल गया तो पढ़ नहीं सकते हैं, पढ़ भी सकते हैं तो साहब कुछ गड़बड़ है उसमें. So we did one reform that all the letters will be available on the net. Two, the letter, the only destination of letter is file. Letter do not have any other destination. Letter must go to the appropriate file. And that is the only thing which e-office and all these digital document management systems are trying to bridge, that letter must go to the file. After that, what does a bureaucrat does from lineman to chairman or from under secretary, section officer to secretary? They read that letter, convert those letter into public policy, and then issue another letter as part of that. If this is done timely, this becomes good governance. If this is done with the intention of making money, it becomes bad governance. And if it is never done, which needs monitoring and needs digital surveillance, then you are in for a bigger problem. I'm sure that the current initiative of GOI and initiative of the state government will make this transformation. Somebody was telling what will happen to illiterate. First, solve the problem of literate first. Illiterate will also get it. Nobody got training how to use WhatsApp. Even illiterates are using. A good service everybody uses. Digital service enables it. Even illiterate will use it faster because somebody can assist them in getting that service. So we need everything in delivery of public services. Even in digitalization, what Mr. Srinivas was highlighting, there is great need for business process re-engineering before we take up digitalization. Otherwise, you might be digitizing or digitalizing something which is not necessary in the first place. Like one thing, right now we are working on that theme, that why not any form that government creates, it gets pre-filled with the data available with the same government. But this is easier said than done. It requires a tectonic shift in the data collection about citizen by the government, and it requires perhaps seamless cooperation and coordination. So chitti, file, and all these data, pre-filled data of citizen, if these are done efficiently, we can certainly transform the way bureaucracy is seen, and bureaucracy will be seen in 1947. We have seen enough of torture of citizen by the bureaucracy. As somebody said, as Arora ji, I entirely agree. There is no need for further reform. There is need for enforcement. If freedom is my birthright, corruption is not at all my birthright. Even Gokhale did not say it. Not a single guideline or report has ever said that inaction cannot be punished. Now the time has come with digital surveillance, we can even punish the ineffective, inactive, and those who avoid taking decisions. Bureaucracy is paid to take decision. Bureaucracy is not paid only to sit on file or make it file warmer by sitting on it. In digital world, even that is not possible. Friends, we have to prepare ourselves in the digital revolution because transformation will only come when even machine gets added to our decision making process. There are certain letters which are coming which had been replied earlier. There should be AI tool in e-office which should link both the letter and earlier letter and say that this was sent earlier. Would you like to reply? If you want to reply, you only say yes, the reply is sent and the person's job is done. We are aiming for that level of automation where no need to further question because this is possible and this is doable. I tried this in Lok Sabha. How many questions are being put the same time by the same or few member every time? We did a AI tool analysis. We find that more than 4,000 questions have been put repeatedly in each session of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. They could be simply avoided if we use AI tool while entering the question or AI tool while replying the questions to the honorable members also. My limited point is that digital is no longer an option. Let's adopt it. And the current bureaucrats who are coming to the service, they are highly intelligent, but they are less motivated. That is the allegation that is thrust upon them. Now it is our time to prove that we are worthy of the trust of the people because trust is not traded. Trust has become tradable. And it is this which is creating difference between citizen and the bureaucrats. We must guard it. We must guard it fiercely, and that is what is the role of the senior officers and people like Srinivaji and his team. The academic world also should reinforce this thesis, and the current one who are in the field, right from Patwari to DM and maybe chief secretary, they live up to this expectation of citizen, and then we can give good governance. Thanks a lot for giving me a chance to speak. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for
Excellent.
Thank you so much, sir, for these insightful remarks of yours. I'm sure bureaucracy will definitely follow the path shown by you, and we will make them trustworthy in the perception of the people because they are definitely doing a very good job, and the trust deficit will soon be bridged up with this advice of yours. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to call upon the person who has taken the initiative for this wonderful and excellent seminar, Dr. Samit Sharma sir. He is a well-known IAS officer who has initiated the movement of using generic medicine in Rajasthan. Presently, he is Secretary, Department of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of Rajasthan. He is also the Secretary of Rajasthan IAS Association. So, without wasting any time, I would request sir for his presidential address. Samit sir, please.
Thank you. Uh, Sir, first of all, let me thank you again for such a professional, highly researched talk. We all are very enlightened. It was very useful for us, sir. And I still remember, sir, I think it was 2008 when I was collector and district magistrate Chittorgarh, and you visited Chittorgarh as MD NHM, and you were also Special Secretary Medical Health at that time. And I can see the same level of enthusiasm still, and that drive for perfection, that meticulousness that I observed, it is still persisting, sir. Hats off to you, sir. And I remember, sir, as a junior officer, you visited those shops, sir, those generic medicine shops, and you inspired us, you motivated our team, sir. And finally, after 3 years, our team got the Prime Minister's Award for this generic medicine initiative, sir. Thanks to you again, sir. And today, sir, uh, I wish to acknowledge the contribution of Professor Ramesh Arora and Daisy ji, because without their help, we wouldn't have rather. It would have been very difficult for us to organize this. You are repeatedly telling, they are repeatedly telling, I initiated this. No, sir. It was their initiative, sir. And with their help, we managed to conduct this seminar, sir. But seeing the response, how civil servants are joining, sir, how civil service aspirants are joining, sir. And it was a houseful show, sir, because at one time only 100 people can join. So, so it was always 100, it was always 100, 98, 99, 100. It was continuing like that, sir. And it was a very successful show for us. And we also created a YouTube link because we were getting a lot of demands from everywhere, sir. So I think it was a successful event, and you made it successful. You are the hero of today's seminar, and I wish to congratulate you for that, sir. And very senior officers have also joined. They've spared their time. I also want to convey my thanks and regards to them, sir. Sir, you have been talking of digital transformation. We are making small attempts at digital transformation, sir. Right now, I'm in the social welfare department. So, through integration of portals, different portals, what sir has just remarked is that we need not fill those forms again and again. We just ask for the name and Janadhar number, and the form gets auto-populated, whether it is for the social security pension scheme or for scholarship or any other scheme. And it also help us to eliminate the bogus applicant. It is very useful. Then we have used different portals, for example, social security pension. So we have switched over to auto approval. As I remember earlier, to withdraw the money, we used to visit banks with our passbooks and all, and there used to be a queue, and then we used to go to the cashier, or if the amount is large, then we have to visit to the manager, etc. But now we simply go to the ATM. So, and the money is auto processed, and we get our money. So on the same lines, in Rajasthan, the social security pension scheme has been automated, and we just ask for the Janadhar number and his name, and after the biometric verification, which is Aadhaar based biometric verification, we just check that we have the database, and we just check whether he's 60 and whether he's BPL. If both the eligibilities are fulfilled, then the computer itself generates its PPO, and the amount gets transferred directly to its account, sir. So it has tremendously increased the number of pensioners. Same way for the scholarship scheme, we are following the auto approval process and auto renewal, which takes place yearly. So we have linked our portal with the CBSE portal and with the RBSE, Rajasthan Board of Secondary Education portal. We have also linked our portal with the portals of SDMs, which who issues the caste certificate. So now we just ask for his name and details, and we ask his roll number and the year when he passed, and also the caste certificate number. Now we don't ask for documents. We ask just the numbers, and we fetch these documents directly from those websites, and in the government institutes, we approve it by the system. So we are slowly marching ahead, sir, as per your expectations, and that would be our contribution to Digital India. And one more initiative I would like to highlight, that is AMS system, attendance management system. So the DOIT, Government of Rajasthan, has developed this app, sir, because the absence of staff during office hours is a major challenge, sir. And to take care of this, we have introduced this AMS, which is a GPS-based and geofencing enabled system in which one can mark in or mark out only when he is present in the office. So right now, 2,500 officers and staff, they are marking their attendance through this system, sir. So this has brought down the work absenteeism from our offices, sir. So we're trying to do more, sir, but I think this is not the proper platform to share all this. But I just wanted to convince you, sir, that the idea of Digital India and digital transformation, which the government of India is trying to implement throughout the country to give better services to citizens, to make the system citizen-centric, citizen responsive. So we are on the same path, sir. We also believe in nil pendency and zero tolerance for corruption, sir. So if you visit our website, you can see that the disposal of applications is 98%, 99%, 99.8%. So we strive for nil pendency, because pendency breeds corruption. One more thing, sir, this digital transformation also takes care of the three basic pillars of good governance: sensitivity, transparency, and accountability. Because once the application is visible to all, we share this data of more than 1 crore beneficiaries on Jan Suchna portal and also on the portal of the department. So anyone can see that what is applied for, when it was sanctioned, where it is pending. One can also see the ledger, how much money one is getting every month, and it is through DBT. So we are trying to implement and the concept of digital India in our department, sir. And it was a wonderful talk, sir. That's all I wish to convey. And I would request Manisha ji to convey a formal vote of thanks to you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of IAS Association Rajasthan, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Shri V. Srinivas sir for having taken out time from his very busy schedule to address us on a useful and a relevant subject that is much need of the time. Sir, your discourse has given us a useful insight into the roadmap for next generation administrative reforms in achieving Vision India at 2047. I'm sure it has already set many of us deliberating about complete digital transformation, the power of e-governance and good governance, and how to take on this journey further so as to translate our vision into reality. We thank Secretary IAS Association, Dr. Samit Sharma, for getting Srinivas sir on board for the benefit of all of us and presiding over this session. We are grateful to Professor Ramesh Arora, Chairman Management Development Academy and Chairman Indian Institute of Public Administration, Rajasthan Regional Branch, for his perennial guidance, mentoring and support. We thank Dr. Daisy Sharma, Assistant Professor, Public Administration, University of Rajasthan, and her entire team for rendering all kind of technical and other support, sometimes even at a very short notice. We are grateful to all the officers, also of the state administrative and other services, and all those who showed their keen interest to stay connected with us in this virtual meeting. We had around 100 people connected with us all through the session, sir. Thank you all. Thank you for the wonderful session and hope to see you soon on another useful session like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So here we end this session. We will definitely meet with more wonderful speakers, with more wonderful sessions. Thank you so much, everyone present. And thank you so much, Samit sir and Manisha ma'am, for giving us the opportunity to be in this such wonderful seminar. And jitna thank you kare Ramesh Arora sir ka utna kam hai. So thank you so much, sir. It is all happening all because of you. You are the real motivation and guiding force. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arora साहब. बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद आपका सहयोग के लिए.
It's a wonderful session. All the best. All the best. See you soon, all of you.
Ji, thank you.